Yes, sir. Trap Harder Tuesday. Just getting home from the gym, putting that work in, back motion, heavy back motion, stand on the grind. We stand on the hustle. Y'all know my motto. Don't stop. Keep going. If you locked in with me, I'm locked in with you. Let's keep going. Let's keep getting to the bag. The grind doesn't stop. The hustle keeps hustling. Quick video though. Correctional officer video. We had a very interesting night at work last night. We had an inmate death on my unit last night, right? So I wasn't working my unit. I had went in early, picked up some overtime, right? So I went in at midnight, right? I'm working on another unit, on the mental health lockdown unit, right? So boom, everything's going according to plan. You know, shift starts off smooth. We finish up counting. It wasn't even 45 minutes into the shift. I hear the walkie-talkie go off. Medical assistant. I need medical assistance. Boom. I'm sitting there listening. I couldn't respond because I'm working on the unit by myself, so I had to stay on the unit. But I'm watching, I'm listening to everything unfold, and it starts to get, more and more, deeper and deeper, right? First it goes from medical emergency to boom, bring a stretcher. Then they talking about bring the AED, right? Boom. It was a long night, right? It was a lot going on. The shift supervisor, the lieutenant that was working, that was his first shift, working night shift. He came through. He was like, man, this is my first night working nights, bro. I've been busy all night. I was just telling him, you handled it pretty well from what I could tell, listening to you on the radio traffic. You did good, and that's what I want to always remind and stress to the people that's coming into corrections. It can go down at any time, any place. It doesn't matter if it's your first day on the job. It doesn't matter if it's Christmas, Thanksgiving. It doesn't matter if it's a holiday. It doesn't matter what time of the day it could be. There's been times, right, the whole prison, damn near institution is blown up 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, man. We in there fighting inmates, doing cell extractions. I've been there, bro. I've been in the trenches, done that type of stuff over the years. My 14 years working in correction. That's why I always stress to the people that's going to do this job, or you coming into this field, you got to always be alert. Always stay on your toes. Never get lackadaisical. Never get complacent on the job. You got to always be thinking, what ifs? What if this happens? What if this goes down? What if I get taken hostage? What if an inmate tries to stab me, to attack me with a shank? What if these inmates get to fight and they got multiple inmates fighting on the yard? Well, you just never know. As a female officer, what if an inmate just comes in the office and tries to rape me? You got to think like that. Always stay on your toes, bro. From the time you clock in, go through that metal detector, go through that Sally port, to the time you get relieved, right? Boom. And you go home out the Sally port. Stay on alert. Stay on your toes, bro. Always be looking over your shoulders, bro. Anything can go down at any minute, bro. And from what I gathered from the situation, it sounds like the inmate OD. He smoked some bad dope, maybe a bad batch of K2 or some dope. And, from what I heard, what I gathered when I went to my unit, because like I said, I went in early, right? So I did 12 to 8. Then when I got relieved from that shift, from my overtime, I went to my regular unit, the unit that this inmate death had occurred on. So, I went in, boom, talking to a couple of the inmates. I went back to the cell. It was yellow caution tape over the cell. It turned into an investigation scene. You know what I'm saying? The investigation team came in 4 a.m. this morning. They were doing interviews all day during my regular shift. Like I said, from what I gathered, he smoked a bad batch of dope. He went to the bathroom, I guess, and then came back to his cell and fell out on the floor. I was talking to some of my other coworkers that worked last night. They were all doing CPR on him for about 30 minutes. They called the ambulance, the EMT to come in. I think it was a doctor on shift. I'm not sure, but once they gone, the doctor has to declare them medically deceased. The EMT come, I think they put them in the morgue, the body in the morgue. Maybe the mortuary service came and got them. It could go down like that, bro. I've seen inmates fall out. I saved the inmate's life about 2-3 years ago. He had 2 heart attacks in the shower, and I was just about to get relieved. It was probably 3:30, 3:40. My relief usually show up about 10 minutes till 4 o'clock. So it was a smooth day all day. Then boom, it went from 0 to 100 quick, bro. I had to run over there to the other unit, right? I go over there, the inmate, he in the shower. The shower's still running. He's on the floor, face down, butt naked, right? So I put some gloves on real quick, rolled him over. I called in, I need medical assistance on my walkie-talkie, start pumping his chest. Boom. The second person on the scene was the associate warden at the time. He just happened to be in the building. He was downstairs doing rounds. He ran in so quick, bro. And he took over for the CPR for me, started pumping his chest. The nurses, everybody responded. They started they put the AED machine on, from what happened was he basically had 2 heart attacks and he had a pacemaker in him, bro. But, I ended up saving his life in the process of me, starting that CPR as soon as I seen that he was unconscious. That's why I want to, stress this too. It's always important when stuff goes down to remember your training. Your training is going to make sure that you do an efficient job. You are effective and you can, get the job done, whatever arises, So when you have an emergency situation arise on your unit, you got to fight. You got an inmate trying to assault you, becoming hostile. Mental health inmates start wigging out. Get on your walkie-talkie. You got a body alarm, depending on what agency, facility you work at. Hit your body alarm. Scream, shout for help. Inmate trying to assault you. Boom, get whatever you can to defend yourself. They only give us so much equipment, right? They give us most facilities. They only give us at the most a taser, some OC pepper spray. You might get a baton. That's it, bro. I got an inmate coming at me with a damn samurai sword trying to chop my head. I'm going to get whatever I can to defend myself because it's all about staff safety and making it home. If I got to grab a broomstick to defend myself, a chair to defend myself until help arrives, and it ain't about being a hero. It ain't about, being the cowboy. You trying to fight. He got a knife. You trying to fight him with no karate. It ain't about that. It's trying to make it home, And like I mentioned, right, the inmate that had OD'd last night ended up dying, bro. That's a big problem in a lot of these facilities nationwide. It's a big drug epidemic. So when you encounter inmates that's unconscious, call for assistance. You encounter inmates that's high or they drunk off of intoxicants, homemade hoots, K2, whatever they've been smoking, and they become agitated and hostile towards you. Don't try to take them inmates on by yourself, bro, because they get completely out of their mind off of these drugs, right? You don't know what they're capable of. You don't know what they intend to do. I always call for assistance. I say such and such unit to control. I got an inmate that appears under the influence of intoxicants, so everybody knows what's going on. You got to let your coworkers know what's going on, bro. It's only you. You got to remember that in corrections, most of the time when you're working in these units on these blocks, it's only you, like me. It's just me today. Well, we had 114 inmates on the roster. It's just me and 114 inmates. You got the unit team, the counselor was here today. Well, I think the case manager, that was it. So it's only 3 of us versus 114 inmates. Upstairs, the unit upstairs, it's another officer, and he got 113 inmates. So it's only really 4 staff members versus 200 plus inmates at any given time. They could take over. They can do whatever they want. You got to play smart. That's the smart way when you're working in corrections. It's all about getting as much staff presence to wherever the situation occurs at, bro, as quickly as possible. Get on that walkie-talkie, call for assistance, whatever you got to do, hit the body alarm so people can get there as quickly as possible, bro, so we can get the situation under control, right? And you got to remember this too, right? Don't never think it's a game. It's not a game, bro. Like I say, anything can go down and it goes from 0. Boom, shit pop off, shit hits the fan, bro. So you can't never go in there thinking it's easy, thinking it's sweet. Yeah, most days in corrections, it's pretty routine. Once stuff happens, we get back to normal. But like I say, stay on your toes, stay alert, bro. Don't ever think it's sweet, bro. Yeah, we got a cushy job. We do a lot of sitting, a lot of observing. But boom, it might just got down. You might not even see it coming. You might be turned around. All of a sudden, inmate behind you, they get to stab at another inmate, bro. It go, bam, 1 second, bro. Them little 2 seconds, that's all it takes. That's all. I've seen so much stuff go down, and it's like, damn, I didn't even see it happen, bro. I remember 2 inmates got the fight, and I was only 15 minutes into my shit, bro. I just happened to see it out the corner of my eye. It happened so fast. I'm like, damn, bro. I was like, I didn't even know what to do for a split second, but I sprung into action, and, I got out there. I told them to stop fighting. They wouldn't stop fighting, so I whipped out my OC, and had to spray them, you know. So when you addressing these situations or you responding to emergencies, you know, it's never going to be perfect. We're going to make mistakes sometimes, you know, and there's training. We go through training every year so we can correct those mistakes and we can work on getting better at those mistakes. So don't beat yourself up. You know, if you hesitate for a second or you make a mistake responding to an emergency, or maybe you didn't do the proper technique they teach us at the academy when it comes to self-defense, or whatever agency you work at, they may teach you different takedown moves and stuff. If it wasn't, you know, all the way by the book, as long as you had a good conscience, you know, and you was trying to get the situation under control and you wrote your memo, you know what I'm saying? What you did, bro, you're going to be good. You know, it's never going to be perfect, you know, especially you got inmates fighting, you got inmates intoxicated. You know, it's never going to be like when you in the training academy or you doing annual training and you got a co-worker, y'all practicing the self-defense moves in class, and he just might just be walking at you at a straight line and you could just take him down easily. You might have an inmate all over the place. He might pull out a knife, jump in the air, trying to stab you on top of the head, slash your throat. So like I say, it's never going to be perfect. So don't beat yourself up, bro. As long as you don't go outside the policy, you know, you got the inmates in cuffs and you still trying to beat them up, stuff like that, getting extra licks in just because he hit you, stuff like that, you're going to be good. Remember, always remember that policy and remember your training, bro. And you know, and I'm going to close the video out with this, right? Stay safe behind that wall. Look out for your coworkers, bro, because we're all we got. It's us versus the inmates at the end of the day. And we go in there, we got a job to do, right? We trying to prevent the inmates from escaping, fighting, stabbing each other, you know what I'm saying? Getting high, ODing, trying to harm themselves, commit suicide, making sure they following the rules, right? We already outnumbered, like I said, so it's a constant battle. The inmates got 24 hours to think of new schemes, new ways to get over on us, bro. Look at, you know, security defaults inside the prison. They might see that the ceiling is starting to crack so they can start stashing their drugs up in this new hiding spot. It's a never ending battle, bro, but we got to show up and we got to do the job every day. We got to perform the job to the best of our abilities. We got to look out for one another, and we got to always remember this. It's all about staff safety, making sure you, your coworkers make it back home safely, securing the institution, making sure it's running securely and in an orderly fashion, and making sure the inmates are safe. They're doing their time. They're doing what they're supposed to do. That's what it's all about in corrections at the end of the day. Y'all like this video, though, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Hit that like and subscribe button if you're new. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok. I got the merchandise for sale. It's one of my gym shirts. I got these We Run the Gym and hoodies and tees, all sizes, all colors available. Y'all got any input, thoughts, comments on this video? Make sure you drop a comment. I'll be sure to get back with you as soon as I can. Y'all know how we coming. Let's get motivated. Boom.